All right. Welcome back to the Pigskin Project. We're doing now a separate kind of video or segment for College Corner instead. Makes it flow a little bit easier so you guys can expect these recordings now and, expect the show to, the live show to just be about NFL football. But this is going to be the same exact stuff that you guys are used to in the main show, but now in its own little segment. But before we get into all that, Matt, how we doing?
Ben, I am doing great. Of course, we mentioned it a little bit on the recap show. The Texas, they win. They win in dominant fashion too against a pretty good team. So I'm excited to get into that. But I mean, it's just a news packed, we're midway through the college football season, and I know like three or four teams that are going to make the playoffs. So just so much that is still up in the air. But I want this to be known, and maybe I'm breaking something to you too, but we're going to do the next few weeks will be like recordings like this. But once the rankings start coming out, I think we need to do a live show. I think live shows will be the way once
Yes.
the rankings start coming out. When the Tuesdays hit and everybody's just wanting to get rankings content, we're certainly going to be live on this channel. So just keep that in mind for everybody. But yeah, let's let's roll, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll get into Texas here in a second. It'll be our second point. Where else would we start besides the absolute disaster that is going on in Happy Valley right now? If you didn't know, which I'd be shocked if you didn't, you'd be living under a rock. Penn State fired James Franklin. There's a lot up in the air. We discussed in detail for like 20 minutes for a separate little episode about James Franklin and the state of that program. So it's just going to be really interesting to see. But the one thing we didn't touch on in that episode is Drew Aller. He's gone for the season, torn ACL. It's going to be a rough season. I kind of don't know what the expectations are for Penn State at this point. I think they'd just be excited for bowling at this
Yeah.
point. Um, but let's get into Drew Aller a little bit. I mean, what do you think the outlook for him looks like?
I mean, the reports are obviously overwhelming in the favor of that's it. That's it. He's done with college football. For the most part, if I'm speaking in that lens where he doesn't, win the appeal, which I imagine he is going to try and appeal
Yeah.
for a medical red shirt because so many players have gotten that kind of leeway over the years. But for Aller, I mean, all we're going to think about is Christian Hackenberg and how it was just a massive disappointment, just as the last 4 years of James Franklin has been. And with everything that they have done to the offense, specifically this year, and how they catered it to trying to make him work, I feel like that is the core of everything with Penn State is that Drew Aller didn't work in a way that he was a top five quarterback in college football, let alone like a top five pick in the draft. So, I mean, you get into all that they did with the receivers this year, and Devontae Ross from Troy, and Kyron Hudson, and Trevor Pena from Power Four schools, and getting the running backs back, and having continuity along the offensive line. Andy Koltnicki is one of the most creative play designers, and somehow, some way, it just still falls apart in a massive way, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And I know he was good in the UCLA game, but it
Mhm.
didn't really matter because they were trailing by multiple possessions. It felt like the entire game.
Yes.
So, I mean, they were chasing and chasing and chasing. So it's easy for UCLA to kind of sit back and like keep everything in front of you. But yeah, man, I was just truly bummed out for the guy because we have seen so many guys specifically this year or even in the past or guys from like uber small schools like Pavia and Jordan Travis in the past go to these big programs and kind of either change a culture with that or a Carson Beck situation in which, like, Carson Beck after the Notre Dame game was like, I need to find love in football again. So
Mhm.
however I find that, I need to find it again. And I think Drew Aller's at that point, man. I think Drew Aller is that just this had this golden boy pressure on his shoulders at State College for 4 years that it was just never going to happen, and it wasn't going to happen there. So I'm eager to see what happens next in his football career because I don't think this is over, and maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't want it to be over for him.
No, I mean, with the way that they've been handing out these fifth years like they're candy on Halloween, I would be shocked if he doesn't get the extra year of eligibility. Um, and I mean, you mentioned the guy that I think you could absolutely like follow in the footsteps of, right? The past 2 years, Miami has found success in getting a veteran quarterback in both Cam Ward and now Carson Beck. I wouldn't at all be shocked if they were just like, well, it's working for us now. We're the number 2 team in the country. Well, Drew, do you want to come here and we'll just pay you money just like we did the past 2 years? And like, I think that is a genuinely real possibility for both the Hurricanes and for Aller. And I think that would just be fun because Miami, as we've seen and we've discussed numerous times, is really building up something special. And they just still need to slot in another quarterback once Carson Beck leaves after this year. So I'm just really interested to see if he gets that waiver, and if he does, I think I would be shocked if it was anywhere other than Miami at this point. But uh going on to one of the
Can we
biggest games, if not, yeah.
one sec? I just want to hit on it. So I've slept on it since we last did it. I I don't think this is a good idea that they fired Franklin. I'm kind of at that point now that I
Really?
maybe it's the rule. Maybe it's the rule effect of it all that I think it's just going to be ruled that they hire. I think there are hires that you can get that I can be intrigued about, but with what he's done at that program, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be hard to follow. And I get what they're trying to do. Everybody's going to, just as you brought up the Carson Beck and the Georgia comparison with Drew Aller, I'm going to bring up the, going from Mark Richt to going to Kirby Smart, and Kirby Smart pushes you over the edge. And it still took Kirby 4 or 5 years to get to that
Mhm.
point. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is already a pressure cooker program that I just, I don't think anyone follows the job that Franklin did. I don't know. I could absolutely be wrong. Like, I think there is a ton of energy you could bring in and really juice up the program, but having the same success as Franklin did, I after a few days of sleeping on it, I'm kind of I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think it's a
I
good idea.
I I think there's genuinely only one coach in America that they could bring in that you'd be like, yes, firing James Franklin was worth it. And that's a guy who's not going to leave. That's Kurt Signetti, and we'll get into him in a second.
Hmm.
But if it's anyone other than Kurt Signetti, I think it's going to be hard to be like excited about this program. Because again, anyone you're going to bring in is going to be from a program that's obviously a tier down because no one's going to, Kirby Smart obviously is not going to come over from Georgia. Dan Lanning's not coming over from Oregon. There's been a lot of chatter about maybe Marcus Freeman, but why in the world would Marcus
He
Freeman
beat
leave
them.
Notre
He beat
Dame?
them last year.
Exactly. It doesn't make much sense. So I think there's the back and forth of it because I do think he eats, sleeps, and breathes Penn State football the same way that Gundy did with Oklahoma State and so on, just with far more success than what Gundy obviously did there. But at the same time, it kind of goes back to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin of it all. At what point are you just like, we might not find a better coach, but we just need a different face within the program. And it's fighting the back and forth that we need a different face, but is this new face going to be any better than what we had before? So, but getting into probably the biggest game, if not the second biggest game of the weekend, how could we not start here? Texas, horns up. They beat Oklahoma. You never know. And we said this going into the game. You never know what is going to happen in the Red River rivalry. If you would have went into this game and you would have told me that like Drew Allard was going to throw 3 interceptions, I would have told you were absolutely lying. That's exactly what happened. This Texas defense had him in absolute hell, and I'm sure that his hand played a factor into how bad he had played, but Mateer just looked awful. Looked so bad going into this game. But obviously you're a Texas fan. Tell us about your experience watching the game.
Yeah, the thing about Mateer is, guess what? The other team finally caught the interceptions that he threw this week. That's what happened. I think that he lives with this ruthless gunslinger over the middle mentality. He had like 2 or 3 against Michigan that we watched together that it's like, oh, it perks your eyes up, but he gets the wheel route down the seam in that game. So you just forget about him. This game, you couldn't forget about him because they were actually caught. Like the first 10 minutes of this game, I was in hell. I can't even lie because it was, I believe it was, they went down, got the ball first. Mateer is running around and the zip on the ball is still there. So the thumb looks fine. And then Texas follows it up with another 3 and out. And you're like, oh man, is this really what it's going to be? And over the course of the day, they found an interception later in that quarter and took like a super duper long field goal that they missed. But for over the course of it, just leaned into the offense and leaned into the run game. Having Trey Wisner finally be healthy was very, notable. I believe, what was it? I gotta find the tweet. I think they started 10 for 17, or they were 10 for 17 on third downs the entire day. Their first 3 third downs, they were 0 for 3. And the combined average of those was like 15 yards or so of their first 3 third downs. So it was just a ridiculous outlier that they soon figured out. And going against Oklahoma, who was going into this game the best third down defense in the country, to figure it out with a quarterback that this week had an article written about him being called the biggest college football bust of all time. Just want that to be known. But for them to just figure it out and Arch leaning into the offense. Booger McFarland said it perfectly on the halftime show, and I think a lot of people probably took it and was like, man, it's just like that's a derogative more so than a compliment. He was a game manager. He played within the offense. He got the ball out. He finally figured out, I don't have a lot of time with this offensive line, so I need to spray the ball out. That helped the run game because everybody's so worried about the quick and short, get the ball out passes. And you just find a few plays throughout the game. DeAndre Moore wide open in the back of the end zone. You find plays within the game. And also the Mateer interception before halftime, dude. What was that?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I don't know who told Venables this kicker's really good. That was one of the weirdest decisions I had ever seen. I don't know if it was a Mateer decision. I don't know if it was a Mateer hey, if you don't see it, throw it away. And he was like, oh, I'll throw it away. Oh, I'll throw it all the way. But I'm just happy they beat them with him. I'm happy they beat Oklahoma with Mateer, because if they beat Michael Hawkins again, there's no respect for Texas still. And you can at least leave this weekend of saying hey, just keep your eye on this team. If they come into their own, just watch out.
Yeah, they're not out of the fight yet, and they picked one hell of a game for that offensive line to actually start gelling together. I mean, that was one big thing. We're just like, man, all these guys have left. They need, it's all this young talent on this offensive line, and they just need to be able to put it together because they haven't at this, through the first 6 weeks of the season. And then they went into this game and they said, no, this is the game that we are going to keep Arch upright as much as possible. And they did a gosh darn good job of it. And then on the flip side of it, it's exactly what I said going into this game. This had to have been a game that Colin Simmons was going to take over if Texas was going to win. And he did exactly that. This is, everything that you wanted out of the Texas game here and their game plan going into it. You see, they only scored one touchdown, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma still has one of the best defenses in the country. So to say, hey, we beat them, we scored 23 points on them, and we're still kind of figuring out our vibes, I think is a huge step in the right direction for this program. Probably going into the next year, but maybe there's still a slight chance, like you said, that they figure it out this year and see if they can make some noise down the stretch of the season. Moving on to, I said this game might have been the biggest game of the slate because IU went duck hunting. They went into this game and they said, we will not be outmatched. There's all this conversation about, well, they have the talent. There's no way Oregon doesn't win this game. They have like 18 straight wins at Autzen. They're just going to run over the Hoosiers. See, then he said, this not my team. This is not me. Hey, not me. We don't just beat top 5 teams. We blow them out. We didn't actually blow them out. Final score was 30-20, but still, it was a huge win. This firmly supplants IU as a top 3 team, at least as of right now in the current landscape of college football, a top 3 team in the entire country. And man, Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper showed that they were NFL caliber players, and they turned on the switch when it mattered the most. And Fernando Mendoza was able to bounce back and figure everything out after he threw that pick 6. And you can't say the same for Dante Moore. It just spiraled out of control. Man, it was just odd for him at coming, their most recent game, because they had a bye before this one, was that Penn State game in the whiteout. And he put the team on his back and he said, nope, this is me. The moment's not too big. But I don't know what it was about the Hoosiers, but the moment just looked too big for the kid, and he was not able to adapt where Fernando Mendoza was. And it's just, as a Hoosier alumni, it is great to see this team playing as well as they did. I know you didn't get a whole lot of chance to watch this game, but from what you've seen, what did you like? What were your takeaways?
What I was continuous, like, I know everybody's doing the cliche of like, well, if you take off the helmets, you would have no idea which team had the 4 and 5 stars. But like truly, Indiana dominated the line of scrimmage for 4 quarters. It was, and the only time that it felt like they got outmanned was early in the game when they were doing the procedural penalties. When Oregon was getting away with that stuff. That apparently that stuff's banned. So seeing that stuff kind of surprised me, and I think there was a real I think that tipped him off. I just think that tipped him off where it was like, oh, these guys need to resort to this. They don't think they can handle with us, and I think there was a coming to Jesus with those 5 offensive linemen specifically, where it's like punch them in the mouth, beat the hell out of them and for as long as you can, and just overall, for them to be able to do that, for Indiana to be able to do that, to Oregon, it's nothing short of just unbelievable. And then you mentioned it, the Mendoza being able to come back after a pick 6, and Signetti said in the post game where it's like, we having fun now. Just being able to have that energy on that sideline in that spot. It was just supposed to be an ugly, gross game with the rain coming down, and who is just going to outlast the other. And Indiana just didn't just do that. They went and won the football game, man. Like, it's just, and that's what's outright surprising. And also the duo of Surratt and Cooper, man. Like, they caught I think every ball that Mendoza threw was to one of those guys, and it just felt like they were just dominant, man. It was just, and Indiana football is 9-1 to win the national championship. and we're 2 years, not even 2 years into the hire of the James Madison head coach. Like this is this of the last like 25 years, is this the greatest coaching job we've ever seen? The only one that comes to mind, like turning a program around, is Urban. Is Urban at Utah specifically, because he inherited a pretty miserable Utah team, and within 2 years he was playing, I want to say the Fiesta Bowl,
Yeah.
12-1, 12-0, whatever they were. This one's better, man. This is better, just because like where Indiana was before Kurt Signetti.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was by all aspects just a poverty program. Like, since the start of this franchise or program, I don't want to say franchise, they have just been outright bad. And now they're the third best team in the country. Again, for them for him to take that Tom Allen team and just basically, it is a team full of not power five, group of five all-star transfers, and turn it around into what it is now is just, it's just a sight to witness, and I'm so here for it. This is the most alive I've
I
ever
also
seen
want to give a
this
shout
team.
out to, like, y'all's three, like the trio of the what is it, of defensive players: Michael Kamara, D'Angelo Pons, and Aiden Fisher. I think I would probably take over anyone in the country, dude. They're awesome. They were everywhere. Like specifically Fisher, bro.
Yes.
Like it's just insane. These guys were all at JMU, and now they're able to be in this spot. Like it's just phenomenal.
Oh, it's great. No, it truly is. It's just beautiful. Moving on to a name that kind of has been getting brought up in the Penn State head coaching search, and right now whether you think it's true or not, the best team by ranking in the SEC, Ole Miss. They barely, barely squeaked out. They might have dropped below Alabama. That's besides the point. Barely squeaked out a victory against Wazoo. To be frank, I didn't watch a whole lot of this game. Ole Miss's defense stood up when it mattered the most, but they made it really close. They let Wazoo score that touchdown with 3 minutes left in the game, where it really has you sitting on the edge of your couch, and you're like, are we about to see Lane Kiffin and this wonderful story that is Trinidad Chambliss lose to Washington State? They end up winning the game. They live to fight another day. Again, some are saying they might be the best team in the SEC, but I think it was kind of a wake-up call for them there. And they're like, well, maybe if we don't, dot our I's and cross our T's, we can lose. Because if we play like this against Alabama, we will lose this game. But we'll see if it translates into the rest of conference play for them. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of this game.
I don't take too much stock in some of these games that get played, because like you look at the drive log for some of these, their first drive was 5 minutes, and they get, what is it? They turn over on downs, inside the 5 yard line, and then they miss a field goal. Late, they get the ball back, they miss a field goal, a makeable field goal. Then after the Wazoo touchdown, which they're down 7-0, they fumble, like right getting into Wazoo territory, and then they score some points at the end of the half. They take the lead. Wazoo hits some explosive plays, hits some explosive touchdowns, and they kind of just close it out, like you said. I mean, it's Wazoo was driving with an opportunity, but just for the most part, I think it's just one of those squeaky games where everybody in that program is circling what's happening this weekend. Everybody is circling, oh, we have to go to Athens in 2 weeks, and we're facing Washington State. It doesn't matter if we win by 1 or we win by 30. Hopefully we win by 30, because then that means we get to, kind of bench our starters and get ready for that game. But that's not what happened. So you just think about that. Overall, I don't think about these games granularly enough, just because I think there is so much looking ahead in this sport, specifically, and sometimes
Hmm.
these results are, you know, plausible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, moving on to my other team. This one hurts. Um, UCS beats Michigan in a game in which, like, we came away and me and you had talked about this. Did they find another great running back? It was absurd. Wademan Jordan gets hurt like very early on in this game.
Heartbreaking, heartbreaking.
Yes, heartbreaking. It gets hurt very early on in this game, and they trot out. I think at this point, King Miller was their third string running back because I think an injury had happened to their second string running back at this point. Um, and then King Miller runs all over this Michigan defense, and I mean all over this Michigan defense. He had 18 carries, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Um, and if they can establish this run game that they have going with all of the other weapons that they have in terms of the pass game, if they can start clicking and finding this offense, they might be able to make a push late into the season. Their chances might already be done with how bad they had looked early on in the season. But there's a chance if, the coins fall the right way for them, they could make a push with how good of the offensive skill set that they have for this team. On the flip side of that, man, uh, Michigan offense continues to just be the
Andrew Marsh,
team.
though, we
Andrew
left
Marsh,
here
we
with
talked about
something.
him.
We left with something.
Yes, we left with something. Andrew Marsh looks great, but this offense just continues to try to nickel and dime you to death, and it just doesn't work. Again, like you go out and you pay Bryce Underwood as much money as you did to have him throw swing passes and screens and 5 yard
Yeah.
outs the entire game. It is just it's frustrating, and I think it's a conversation to have come the off season. But already, Michigan fans, along with myself, are starting to wonder: is Schroen Moore the guy? He was the guy to right the ship. He was the guy to steady the program when everything was going on with Connor Stallions. But I don't know if he's the guy to be able to get this team back to a national championship. Given I think he bought himself another year because he is one heck of a recruiter, and obviously he's able to get the alumni and the boosters to pay up big money. So I think he allowed himself one more year, but just very frustrating all around watching this game from a Michigan fan standpoint here. I don't know if you tuned into this game.
Yeah, I had it on. I was more looking at the Georgia outcome, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, just because this one got out of hand pretty quickly. I also want to give a shout out to Brian Jackson on USC. He was one of their running backs. He, I believe, scored in this game. He was listed as out in this game because, he's like the sixth or seventh string running back, so you never think you're going to get to that point. So he ended up playing with an out listing. USC, the program, only got fined 5K for that. So uh, I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that helps necessarily with the injury status that we already have in college football, where everything is so like tight to the vest. Like, I mean, what happens if Jacoby Lane is ruled out for this game and all of a sudden like he's scoring a touchdown on the first drive like he did in this one, and it's only 5K. Like it's only a 5K fine. I just thought that was funny. If that adds more like layers to the injury, stuff we already have, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you said it. You said it best. USC's offense still really, really good. They have a fun game this weekend, and then Michigan side of the ball. My big question is, um, why still? Why are we not running Bryce more? Why are we not doing some more design stuff? Is it just is the creativity that limited with a player like this? I don't know, but I feel like there should be ways where it's like I'm giving him like six or seven, eight, nine, like designed running back runs where he is keeping the football and trying to get some yardage instead of 30 running back carries each game, because I think that would go a long way. But yeah, it's again, I think that the middle of that Big Ten is really really jumbled up right now, and like I said, I think USC's got a shot to at least challenge Oregon for third in the conference right now, at least if they beat Notre Dame this weekend. So yeah, that would be an interesting one to look at as Michigan continues to kind of stumble.
Yes. Well, moving on to the game that had the majority of your attention, and you'll be able to talk about it more than I did because obviously I was watching that Michigan game. Georgia ends up beating Auburn 20-10. Uh, really, I think I don't want to say takeaway, but people were pretty upset and clamoring about that goal line fumble touchdown. Did the forward progress stop with Jackson Arnold? And obviously that was like a very huge play for them because in all intents and purposes that took off 7 points from Auburn. I mean, I think it happened early enough in the game they should have been able to rally and whatnot. But that was just a ridiculous sequence of events that had followed that game. Gunnar Stockton is playing kind of normal again. Again, you never really know what you're getting out of him, but he looked all right in this game. But you watched this game more than I did.
The first half went as beautifully as Auburn could hope in any universe. Georgia had what was it? They had 6 offensive plays in the first quarter, and up into that fumble that happened at the 2-minute warning, they had 6 total offensive plays in the second quarter and 22 total offensive yards. So literally, they were keeping the ball away. They were staying on the field against a Georgia defense. They were moving the football through line, and that happens. And it's an immediate swing. The the final 2 minutes, I tracked this when I was watching it. The final 2 minutes with all the stoppages, with the review of the fumble, and Georgia driving down after the fumble, it was 38 minutes of real time to finish the 2 minutes
Ugh.
of the final, the first half. Just insane. Just ridiculous. I don't know what we were doing there. Georgia had no timeouts on the final 2-minute drive and got multiple like we're gonna review if this is a catch. And both times they went to what was it, McDonough and McElroy in the booth, and they're both like, yeah, that's a catch. I don't know why they're reviewing it. I don't know. It's close, but you could continue to play. And those were timeouts for Georgia, and it ended up being, instead of a game where it's 17-0 and you're punting the ball or kicking it off to Georgia, instead you're going into half 10-3 with Georgia getting the ball out of half. And Hugh Freeze has an interview on what was it, those little coach interviews, and he's like, I don't know. Like, Georgia's got 3 more timeouts. Like, he legit was looking around. He just looks so dejected. Sometimes those coach interviews are just like, just passing through, and it's like, I think what is it? We got to play good third down defense, and we got to run the football. Sometimes it's those where Hugh Freeze was legitimately honest. Like, I don't know. These guys are playing their asses off, and it's a 7-point game. We should be up by so much more because of calls like that. And I think it took him out of the game. I think taking him out of the game, it took his entire team out of the game because they didn't score the rest of the game. Georgia had multiple, long sustaining drives that one of them ended with the touchdown with Stockton in the fourth quarter. But just overall, I I just see the vision that I had before the season with his Auburn team, where I was like, I think they could win 9 games if the quarterback is just a semblance of something, because the roster is really, really good to hang in these games as they continue to hang in these games. But the quarterback just does not have the edge to push them over. And I think ultimately swinging and missing on 2 transfer quarterbacks, Peyton Thorne first, and now Jackson Arnold, I think it's going to cost Hugh Freeze's job.
Yeah, I think it might. There goes your another job opening. Maybe James
Yeah.
Franklin. Um, Getting on to kind of our two last games that we're going to go in depth on. Moving on to another SEC game, Alabama versus Georgia, or Alabama versus Missouri. Alabama beats Missouri 27-24 in a close game. Really, the two big kind of factors that played into this game was you could take Bo Pabula out of Penn State, but you can't take the Penn State out of Bo Pabula. Just making just dumb throws at times throughout the course of this entire game. But then just the absolute utter dominance in terms of time of possession by Bama in this game. They outpaced Mizzou in terms of time of possession by almost a full 17 minutes. The time of possession ended up being 38 and a half or close to 38 and a half for Bama compared to 21 and a half for Mizzou. And when you're going to be making stupid mistakes and making stupid throws and not being able to get the best running back in the country going, and then also just absolutely getting outmatched in terms of time of possession, you're lucky that the score of this game was 27-24 and it ended up being as close as what it was. But flip side of that, I mean, Ty Simpson continues to just be surgical. He gets the job done. I mean, he's not doing anything like outworldly special, but he's just surgical with the ball. He knows where it needs to go. He knows the throws he has to make and when he has to make them. And that's all you need to do when it comes to the weapons that you have on this Alabama team. Did you watch this game?
I did, and it's just the difference in quarterback play is just so stark sometimes. Like I think this was one of those games where you just go into it and you're like, oh well, we gotta make Pabula pass, and you have that first drive for Mizzou, where they walk down the field 80 yards. And then after that, they were chasing points the entire game. The only time that it felt like they were gifted, they were gifted something was Simpson had a fumble right as the half started or something, and Mizzou capitalized off of it. But for the most part, there was just so much trust in Simpson making the right play and like you said, being surgical. I mean, that fourth down he had, I think it was on their touchdown drive. It's like 4th and 9, outside field goal range. DeBoer keeps him on the field, and he doesn't throw at the sticks. He throws 30 yards downfield, and it's just on a dime to the freshman Brooks, and it was just, man, it just nails. And again, if you're going to have that quarterback play in this conference this year, I think they are clearly the front runners in the conference right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching this, Mizzou offense, some of the least efficient third down offense I have ever seen in my it is bad. They were 1 of 11 on third downs in this game.
It was because they had to pass so much.
Yeah, it was bad. And then kind of moving on to just 3 games that I think are worth just mentioning and tossing in here before we get to our little group of 5 really quickly. Utah just absolutely kills ASU, and by Utah I mean Devin Dampier. He's just ran all over this defense. 10 rushes, 120 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And it doesn't help that ASU was rolling Jeff Simmons out at quarterback because Sam Leavitt had a foot injury. Yes, that Jeff Simmons, the Georgia Tech one, and Nebraska one. I just really don't think they stood a chance in this game. Florida continues to not be able to win any game of any meaning that's not named Alabama. They just put all of their focus into can we beat Alabama? Yes, we can. All right, season is over. that was their entire season, was the Bama game. And then finally, Tennessee squeaks out a victory just like Ole Miss did against Arkansas, one of the worst teams in the SEC to this point in the season. They end up winning 34-31. But did you have any thoughts on these last three games?
Well, you skipped over Ohio State. Ohio State.
Oh.
I know you wanted to avoid it. But the arcade, Arvell Reese, Caden McDonald, and Caden Curry just swallowed up the game. They
Mhm.
suffocated that football game for Illinois. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Without a doubt, they're one of the top two teams in the country right now. If you want to argue Miami and Indiana, that's fine by me. But I'm putting Ohio State in a different tier, even if the
Different
quarterback
tier.
has still not been challenged yet. But no, of those three games, I mean, Arkansas, they're going to play for the new coach, Bobby Petrino, the new old coach, I should say. Um, yeah, and then just overall, nothing from the other two that I was, Utah is Arizona State was just so outmatched in that one that I kind of you could turn it off at halftime, and I did, and then the Florida State, you just this defense, man, they just don't have difference makers on defense. Mason Hensel, whoever the freshman, however you pronounce his name, he's been phenomenal for Pitt. I just want to make notice of that. But Florida State's defense is the problem. I'm fine with the Gus Malzahn, Tommy touchdowns offense, even with no Squirrel White and their left tackle was out. But they just don't have the horses on the defensive end to stop Pitt, which is kind of crazy.
Yes. All right. Our little group of five check in here. Um, USF continues to lead the pack, especially coming out of the American.
Dude,
They just put on an absolute offensive clinic against North Texas. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. They ended up winning this game 63-36. Honestly, I'm a little bit more concerned that they let up 36 points to North Texas. Um, but they continue to kind of lead the pack in this category. You have Memphis. They did not play a game this past week, but they are on an absolute collision course to play USF 2 Saturdays from now. And then there goes your final American team, the Midshipmen. I just think it's great that it kind of seems like the group of five, again, as you said, kind of comes down to the American here. And all three of like your major contenders, you can't quite rule out UNLV just
I'm
yet.
lobbing Tulane in
Uh,
that too. Even though they lost to Ole Miss, I'm lobbing Tulane in there.
yeah, but it seems like all three of at least your major contenders out of America are all on a collision course to play each other in Navy, Memphis, and South Florida. All three of them, again, they all play each other at different points within the season. That big one coming up is the Memphis versus USF. And then again, there's still Tulane and UNLV, and there's still a lot of football to be played. So it's we can't make a definitive answer like we did with Boise State last year at this point. Um, but do you have any like thoughts on anyone that's standing out outside of the guys we've named or UNLV or Tulane?
I mean, the Old Dominion Monarchs, they kind of thanks for coming out. They were a kind of fun little trendy pick that I think people were latching onto because of the way they hung around against Indiana, and they did some things along the line of scrimmage in that game, and they were the team that ruined Brent Pry's tenure at Virginia Tech. So there was a lot of steam for Old Dominion, but they go in and lay an absolute egg against Marshall. Marshall, the same team who lost all their players, even though they won the Sun Belt last year, they lost all of their players to the portal because they fired or didn't renew their coach. They scored 48 points on the Monarchs. So yeah, I think Old Dominion's kind of thrown out of there. JMU is still someone to always watch. Obviously, they're 5-1, and their only loss is against Louisville on the road. Who do they play this week? Oh, well, I just mentioned them, the Monarchs. So you think about that game in the grand scheme of things. Old Dominion's kind of like is our season isn't ruined, but the Sun Belt is still an East-West conference. They're the only like division conference left. These guys are in the same division. So Old Dominion, if you want to win the Sun Belt, you got to go through this team. You got to win this game. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and if JMU loses, we can kind of catapult them into the sun too, and say, all right, well, this is just the American spot to be filled in the G5.
Yeah. Again, each and every week we'll kind of keep you guys updated in terms of whoever deserves the right or earns the right to just get stomped in the first round of the playoffs, because obviously the level of competition continues to uh, grow greater and greater. I say that as USF beat an SEC team already, but I digress. Do we want to jump into kind of the big games on the coming slate for Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm ready.
Let's go. What games you got for us? I'll let you take that away.
All right, all right. I'll lead in.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the number one, the where game day is going, the highest ranked matchup. Ole Miss travels to Athens, Georgia this weekend, I believe at 2:30 on ABC. Again, this is a game where you have the top 10 matchup. If I'll say this as a betting tip, if you believe Ole Miss, if don't think about covering the spread. If you think Ole Miss is going to win, just take them outright, because there is a stat where it's like with Indiana's now win in the last 2 years in top 10 matchups, the you're 17 and the outright underdog is 17-4 in just winning the game outright rather than covering the spread. So only 4 times have they covered the spread and lost. If you get where I'm saying, where 17 times they just outright won. So if you think like Ole Miss can cover 7.5, just take them to win the game. That's just a betting tip. But from a football standpoint, is Georgia ever going to start fast in any of these conference games? Because you think about their games against, because I was making note of this while the game against Auburn is going on. Think about their conference games, Ben. The Tennessee game where they're trailing at the half and they're down 21-7 at the end of the first quarter. You think about the Alabama game. Alabama starts a historic 9 for 9 on third down. It was 24-14 at halftime. Alabama didn't score again. The Kentucky game, it kind of punt Kentucky. All right, I'm punting Kentucky. Sorry. And then the Auburn game, they're down 10-3, and I mentioned it. They only had 22 yards going into the 2-minute timeout against Auburn. So I get weird things happen at Jordan Hare, but is Georgia going to start any of these games with some fire, especially against a team with a pulse that isn't Kentucky? And now you're facing Ole Miss, that is, because of the numbers next to their name, the highest ranked matchup that they have faced this season so far. And isn't that what Lane Kiffin's trying to do every time he's on the field? Is just blaze your face off with how they move the ball down the field. So again, I'm interested to see how that transpires with Georgia and their offense. If this is another game where Georgia is kind of just slow out of the gates, and Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, what he does well is kind of pushing the ball down the field, being reckless, but in a way that I think is rewarding. It could get scary for the Dogs.
No, it absolutely is, and I think it could, and I think it comes down to that kind of dichotomy that we have discussed so often on this podcast when it comes to Gunnar Stockton. What Gunnar Stockton are you going to get in this game?
Yeah.
Are you going to get a Tennessee Gunnar Stockton where he's able to kind of keep up with this when it matters the most? Or are you going to get an Alabama Gunnar Stockton who looks just confused, doesn't quite make the plays when asked of him? Because I do think so much of it comes down to how he plays. Because we've discussed this before. This front seven of Georgia is not that front seven that we've come accustomed to. And so much of this is that change towards the offense. Can they make plays when it matters the most? And obviously, all of that starts with the quarterback. And on the flip side, can Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin take advantage of this not stellar Georgia defense? If this was the matchup 2-3 years ago, I would have been like, well, yeah, good luck, Trinidad Chambliss. But again, this isn't that Georgia defense that we're used to. And again, it's the cop-out answer. The game comes down to the quarterback, but it really absolutely does in this game. And again, Chambliss has looked good since taking over this job. And can Gunnar Stockton kind of compete and be stride for stride with this guy who loves to force the ball down the field, as you had mentioned? That being said, I just think Georgia is a better team. I'm going to take the coach that I like more. I'm going to take the team that I like more, and I think Georgia's probably going to win this game.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning with you too. Again, am I ever gonna pick against Georgia? Seriously, but it's just I think this is a leaned-in game for Georgia that they can run the football, and you saw the way that Ole Miss was able to beat LSU, and LSU's got their own problems, but they were able to like rush 3 against LSU. You're not going to be able to do that against Georgia. You got to commit guys to the box to really stop this run game with their freshman Chauncey Bowens, who's really come alive, and then of course Stockton is a player you need to think about in the run game. It's just it plays into the matchup of Georgia being able to run the football, move the ball down the field that way, and kind of long sustain these drives. It's just how, like, if you could tell me the first 20 minutes go as planned and they have 2 scoring drives, Georgia does, I'd be like, all right, well, pack it up. It's just all in the day's work for the Dogs. But if Ole Miss comes out blazing, this is going to be a show. But I am going to take Georgia.
Yes.
And then we get into the next ranked-unranked matchup. I'm going to go with the night one. I'm going to go with the third Saturday in October. 11th ranked Tennessee travels to Tuscaloosa to face the Alabama Crimson Tide. For the most part, this has been a game the last few years that has really just gotten everybody out of their seat and gotten everybody excited. So there's nothing that changes my mind here. I'm just entertained to see how Tennessee moves the football on this Alabama secondary, because obviously we know what they are in that kind of category. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, just because overall I'm not overwhelmed by the running backs of Tennessee, but I'm also like impressed with how the interior of Alabama played against Mizzou, that I think they're in this stretch of like, all right, we got to play tough run defense against these teams. Like that was the game plan for Mizzou going into that one, is Bama's gettable on the offensive or the defensive line and the run game. Maybe that was just a Florida State thing. Maybe that was just a Gus Malzahn has Alabama's number thing. Who knows? But I think this is a kind of how do these receivers attack downfield against the Alabama secondary?
Yeah. I'm wondering, just as we saw Tennessee play against Georgia and that connection that Aguilar and Brazel have, can that translate over to this game? Because it was really that connection in that Georgia game that kept them in that game for as long as they did. And I think if they can highlight that connection, and if Brazel could make those stellar contested catches, which I don't think might be a little bit more luck than anything else, but if he can make those stellar down the field contested catches, I think they probably have a chance to win this game. I I just don't have a whole lot of confidence that the Volunteers will be able to run the ball against this front seven of Alabama. Um, so I really think as long as Ty Simpson continues to look at the way he does, I think Alabama probably
Yeah.
runs away with this game because there's not much for me to get excited about on this Tennessee offense. I mean, you let Arkansas put up 31 points on you, and if Arkansas is putting up 31 points on you, what is Ty Simpson and this Alabama offense going to do to you?
Is that another kind of thought about the Ole Miss we talked about earlier? Is that just kind of looking ahead? Maybe I should take more into account with some of these games, but I think Tennessee at their best is pretty good. But I'm gonna take the home team in this one. I'm gonna take the better quarterback with Simpson. I continue to have so much fun watching Ty Simpson quarterback. Like I said it to y'all in the chat, like this is what we wanted Nuss to be, right? Like this is what we wanted him to be. Just being able to be a surgeon in the middle of the field, be able to create these tight window throws, play from the pocket, and when in doubt, need to make those big time scrambles. He's been everything and more, and just it's. I wish I went back in time after that Florida State game and sprinkled some change on the Alabama quarterback in that time because he has really figured it out in a big way since then. Next we get into, I think this might be the game I'm most excited for, to be honest with you, just because I think we're going to learn so much about these teams. I think all four of those teams that we just talked about could lose this weekend and still be vying for a playoff. We have a playoff elimination game this weekend. Number 20 USC
Yes.
travels to South Bend in a game that just studded quarterback play. You could make the case to me that CJ Carr has been one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and same for Jaden Maeva. It's been a phenomenal offensive showing for this team. A little piece of betting advice. In like 9 of the last 10 matchups of this one, the winning team has scored over 34 points. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about the over at this point in time. That number's going to go up. So again, just keep that in mind. But you just think about what USC has been able to do on the offensive end with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. Well, they're going against Leonard Moore on the other side of the ball, one of the stud corners in the entire country, specifically in press man coverage. Just excited to see how that matchup looms large. And then Wayman Jordan is going to be out for this one. So again, we're going to get another look at Mr. King Miller on the USC running back game.
Absolutely. This game reminds me so much of the game that we saw Notre Dame play on early in the season in Texas A&M.
Yep.
And Texas A&M, that same, kind of high-powered offense when it comes to skill position players, just like they have with Mario and KCC, you have with Lane, Lemon, and maybe possibly King Miller. I really do like King Miller. Obviously, it was a one-game sample size, but he looked great in that one game. And I think if they can get those offenses, pieces going, I really question whether or not Notre Dame has enough pieces outside of CJ Carr and Love to keep on pace with USC. And to be frank, I kind of like USC in this game. I kind of really like USC in this game because, again, we've seen Notre Dame lose this shootout already in this season, and I'm not quite there where everyone else is yet on Notre Dame. Again, they have a chance to continue kind of put out the same blueprint that they did last year, where they lose early on and then make that push late in the season. But I need to see some life out of you in this game. And again, as you said, I think this is an elimination game for either team because you already have your 2 losses and you don't have your conference championship to hang your hat on.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Notre Dame, speaking from that side, is that are they going to have they truly turned a new corner? Because you think about the first three games, Miami scored 27 on them with multiple explosive touchdowns, including the C.J. Daniels one-hander. A&M, you mentioned, Mario Craver goes for, 90 yards. KCC has his own. And then even Purdue got in on the fun and scored 30 points in that one. I know some of it was in garbage time to, backdoor a spread, but still, 30 points against Purdue is one of those notable outcomes. But in these last 3 weeks, or last three games that they've played, Arkansas 13 points, Boise State 7, and then NC State most recently 7. Uh, this defense is coming in. They're coming in with they're probably pretty chesty coming into this one. So again, it's I mean, this is a battle of, is USC's offense legit? Is because I think a lot of people made the statement last week where it's like, well, that's the Big Ten win for USC, being able to out physical a team like Michigan, where in reality, this is the statement that they are looking for.
Yes.
This is the statement to go into South Bend, to go in when it's colder outside and be able to hang with a team that has, championship aspirations. It's just this is huge for the Lincoln Riley perception at USC, and he does not win this game. So again, I'm just so entertained by the narrative factor of it all. I love Freeman. I don't like Notre Dame, but I love Freeman. I think he's one of the
Yeah.
the more advanced coaches in our sport, and there's not many coaches that I think could sustain even 0-2, and he's got a chance here. If they win this game, think about the schedule for. I'm not going to name it all off for Notre Dame, but you look at it, it's middle of the pack ACC and Navy. So just keep that in mind. Even if we like Navy on this podcast, Notre Dame at home is probably a game they're going to be favored. But
Yes.
I'm going to take Notre Dame. I'm going to take USC with the cover. I think this is a close, tight, hit the over game, 30-30, bar for bar. Let's go. Let's roll. But I just think Notre Dame with a guy we somehow didn't mention in Jeremiah Love, I think they just find a way to win it within the 8.5.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, I honestly, to be 100% clear here, I will probably place a sip or a slip of USC money line over on
Mm-hmm.
points. Because again, if you truly believe that USC wins this game, it's
They're
not going to be
scoring a million.
because it's not going to be because it's a defensive battle. It's just going to be because they absolutely blow this team out with the
Yeah.
firepower that they have on offense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's get into another one. This one is this is the early, and then we'll cover one more, and then we'll uh, get into some notables. Um, LSU is dogs to Vanderbilt this weekend. I just wanted to make note of this game, that this is happening, and again, just shows what the SEC conference looks like. Overall, I don't have a problem with Vandy being like, the favorite in this game. To be honest, with the way that LSU's offense has played, but I'm just intrigued. I can't get enough of this LSU defense. It's so funny that I'm like, I am talking one side of my mouth where it's like I don't want to talk about LSU's offense ever, but I cannot stop watching LSU's defense. Like I was watching them place or face Sellers this past weekend, and I mean they're awesome. Mansour Delane got what is it? He had a big pass breakup on a fourth down. And I'm like, man, if you knew about him, if you listened to this show early in August, but yeah, and then the Vandy hype, like they're also, this is a 5-1 battle, but you think about what Vanderbilt has done to get to this point. They're coming off the Alabama loss, and they're following it up with a bye week and now a home game against a top 10 team. Like, if there's ever the chip on Pavia's shoulder for a moment like this is as big as the moon. So
Massive.
again, I'm so interested with the narrative of this game. So what do you think about this one?
No, I do think it obviously comes down to this LSU defense and how well Pavia looks against, again, this defense. They were able to move the ball well, as we talked about, against Alabama, or at least move it well enough to make it a competitive first half. And if they can kind of find that and harness that for an entire length of football, I think that you have a chance in this game. And then it's the cheap, low hanging fruit. But how is LSU's run game going to be? This
Yep.
could hopefully be the game that you can find that. I'm not so certain that it will be, but if you can again find that, again, that's still that door that is left unturned for this LSU team, and it will probably be the thing that kills them going on to the end of the season if they can't. But again, I think it comes down to if they can Vanderbilt, if they can find kind of that offense and that success that was working for them in that first half against Alabama, and can Diego Pavia be that hectic quarterback, and hectic in a good way, not the same way that we talk about Gunnar Stockton, but can he be that hectic quarterback that can give LSU a little bit of trouble? But I'm gonna default to LSU because of the defense, and I'm not quite dead on Nuss. I probably should be. I probably really should be dead on Nuss, but I do truly love him. So I'm gonna pick LSU to win this game.
I am right there with you. Give me LSU for one reason only. I took them on a sprinkle 40-1 to win the national championship this week. I just think the odds are too good for the defense. I think this is the defense. This is the look of a defense that can win a national title. And they have a quarterback that has done it before. Maybe he hasn't done it this year, but he's done it before. The receivers are good. We need Aaron Anderson back healthy. Maybe they never have a run game. Maybe run game is overrated. But I'm taking LSU just because I can't quit the defense, and maybe it's I just can't take I just can't take Vandy in this spot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lean with you. Next, we get into the final kind of major game of the weekend that I don't think people realize is a major game. One of Georgia Tech or Duke is going to be 4-0 in the ACC conference, in a conference where there's only 8 conference games. So you think about Miami and all the Miami struggles. Like, Miami is the team to beat in the conference, and I'm not arguing that. And they have a fun game against Louisville on Friday night this week. But you think about the landscape of the overall conference outside of Miami, it is completely up in the air, similar to the Big 12 of the past. There's only 3-0 teams. They're facing off. 2 of them are facing off in this game. The other one is Virginia, who does not face an ACC opponent this weekend, by the way. So one of these teams is going to be 4-0 and sit alone at the top of the conference with everything in front of them. And you just think about the landscapes of how we got here, where Duke, it feels like they're dead. Like, they lose to Illinois and they lose to Tulane out of conference, and it feels over. Since then, with Darian Mensah, they have scored 38-plus points in 3 straight ACC games. Crazy stuff. And then you think about Georgia Tech. We've talked about Georgia Tech on this show. And we predicted them to beat Clemson before, Clemson kind of takes a nosedive. But just Georgia Tech being able to have the identity that they present on offense, specifically with Haynes King. And yeah, man. So this is another one of those games that I just don't. I don't think the country really understands the ramifications that Georgia Tech and Duke kind of presents this weekend, Ben.
Yes, and this is going to be quite the fun quarterback matchup because they are so far apart on the spectrum of
Mm-hmm.
what like a
Oh,
good
yeah.
college quarterback are. Because I think we both agree that Darian Mensah and Hayes King are both good college quarterbacks, but they get there in two completely opposite paths, and it's going to be fun to kind of see those two clash against each other. because again, Mensa, he's very fun to watch with his feet and being able to kind of make the plays down the field. And then there's Haynes King. Like I think for people who haven't watched um Georgia Tech football, which I mean, what are we doing at this point? For people who haven't watched Georgia Tech football, I think the most ample way I can describe Haynes King to you is Cam Scatabo, but playing quarterback. And I think like that's a perfect way to describe Haynes King as a quarterback. And again, that identity that Georgia Tech has been able to kind of capture as a program that's worked so well for them through the first 7-8 weeks of the season. And as much as I like Darian Mensa, it's hard for me to not just go with the grit and grind that Georgia Tech offers. And if it is a close game, the way that Vegas is predicting it to be, I'm going to go with the team that has shown that they can kind of grit and grind their way out. So I'm going to take the 12th ranked Georgia Tech Hornets here.
I'm taking Duke. I'm taking Duke just because I think if this goes the way I think it goes, and it goes into the who scores more points route, I think Duke wins that game. And I think the also other little, underlying of it all is we're starting to get into that season. Who's on the short list for the Penn State head coaching job, Ben? Manny Diaz, the former defensive coordinator. He needs this game. So I thought that would be a little fun wrinkle to throw in there. And again, I know we talk about Sig, and we deserve to talk about Sig in his own little tier. Manny Diaz at Duke, the last 2 years, if he wins this football game and becomes a top 25 team, I'm just saying. They won 9 games last year with Malik Murphy, who, by the way, they're 0-7 over in Corvallis with him at Oregon State. They upgrade at quarterback with Mensa, and they start 4-0 in this conference. That would be something to really, really notice. But, Ben, I just want to make a note. I messed up. I know. Sometimes it happens to the best of us. But the Holy Wars this weekend. And
okay,
it's ranked for the first time
lose it.
in over 15 years. This is a ranked matchup, and I almost forgot about it. This is my fault completely. I try and be, Mr. Utah on this show, but I almost forgot. But you think about Utah and BYU. I've never been to the state of Utah, but I know from afar that these two fan bases, they hate each other, brother. There is real anger here. BYU has started 6-0. They're already bowl eligible with a true freshman quarterback who wears number 47, Bear Bachmeier. He throws to his brother Tiger. Yes, that's what's going on at Brigham Young this year. If you have not watched this season, they're coming off a game in which they survive against Arizona, who's pretty decent in the Big 12 this year by Big 12 standards, and then Utah is kind of just trying to save their reputation, save their resume after a bludgeoning by Texas Tech, which maybe that's just what Texas Tech does this year, by the way. Maybe we just have to make a note of, like, this is just what Texas Tech is this year. I don't know. But I'm going to spin it over to you because I almost forgot about this one.
Yeah, no, I was when you teed up the last game, I thought you were going to talk about the Holy War. You threw me off there for a second. No, can Devin Dampier kind of continue his I don't know if I want to call it Justin Field-esque kind of play style, what we had seen him do against ASU. Can we see that carry over into a top 15 ranked team? Because he wasn't really able to have that, I'll say, aura around him when they played that Texas Tech game. But can he carry what he did in ASU over to BYU? And I really think they can. It goes back to that conversation that we had when we talked about that Texas Tech game the first time around. I just think they're just going to be absolutely outmatched and outmanned BYU when it comes to trenches on both sides of the football. And when you mix that in with a Devin Dampier that is playing in full Devin Dampier fashion, I think it's going to be hard for any Big 12 defense to stop what Utah has going on there. So I'm taking Utah here. To be frank, BYU is, of all the ranked teams, BYU's probably the team that I've watched the least of in just full transparency. But I am going to take Utah to win and cover.
They had a fun one a few weeks ago against Colorado in Boulder. It was one of the late games, and it was like the only late game, so it got all of my attention. But you think about the Big 12. This is we talk about Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is kind of I think I do this every week, talking about tiers in this conference. But Texas Tech is on a tier alone by itself. The next tier is firmly set with these two teams, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know both teams? So Texas Tech is first in points per game on offense and defense in this conference. Both Utah and BYU are second and third in both of those categories as well. So you think about where this course, this collision course is leading us, and then you talk about the rush offenses in this game. Utah and BYU both top 10 in the country rush offenses. I'm very, very excited for this one. I am so excited I am blindly betting the over on this one. It's the Big 12. It's the Holy War. I don't care if the defenses are good. Give me 50 points, boys. But I'm really excited for this one. And you know what? Give me BYU. Give me the Cougars. I'm taking the home team in this one because why not? Let's have some fun. But yeah, I think this one could go either way. Give me the team that's getting plus points. But yeah, I think that's all for the major games of the weekend. I think this is our time to get into the notables portion of the show, in which we kind of roll over and just kind of throw out some games and throw out some maybe there's a storyline around the country that devote some attention to. But Ben, do you got some notables this week?
Yeah, really the two big notables that stand out for me is Washington versus Michigan. And I'm not saying that because of Michigan, I'm saying that because of Washington. I firmly believe that if Washington had a little SEC patch on their jersey, they would be a ranked team. It still astonishes me that they are as slept on across the landscape of college football as they are. Their one loss came to the team that we have all agreed upon is unanimously the best team in the country, and that was to Ohio State. And not that like there's anything, such thing as a good loss per se, but they held them 24 points, and not not any other team in the country can say that through the first 7 weeks of the season. They have been on a tear. And I still think it's kind of a travesty that they are not ranked through this point in the season. They beat a scrappy Maryland team. I don't know if good is the word that I would use, but a scrappy Maryland team.
Survived.
Yes. But I think this kind of Michigan game can be the game that puts them a little bit more on the map and a little bit more on the radar for people, not because Michigan is ranked, but because Michigan still kind of has that like oomph behind their name, whether they're good or bad. They still kind of have that name power to them. So if Washington can go in this game and win in the fashion that I really think that this offense can, I think I would be just jaw dropped and starstruck if they were not on the top 25 headed into next week or the following week. And then the other one is an SEC matchup. That was Mizzou versus Auburn. Auburn, as we kind of discussed, was able to hang in there a little bit. And Mizzou had showed a lot of those kind of ugly plays that we talked about. And I think Auburn has a chance to win this game and be like, okay, well, maybe Auburn isn't as bad as we thought they were. Maybe they're a little bit closer to where Matt had thought they were going into the season compared to what people kind of think this Auburn team is. And I do think if Auburn can win this game, Hugh Freeze might be able to buy himself a little bit extra time because he can point and say, look, I won against a ranked team in our conference. Please don't fire me. I just need to find a quarterback. But those are kind of the two games that stand out to me outside of the already discussed group of 5 game.
Yeah. I'm scrolling through here. I just always, not the day of that we do this, kind of look for the games. Friday night's a fun one. You got some numbers next to teams' names. Miami, the number 2 ranked team in the country, is facing Louisville. This was a game that was electric last year with Cam Ward and Tyler Shuck. So just keep that in mind going into this one. Nebraska travels to Minnesota. They're favored by 9. This was a game that I had Nebraska in the playoff going into this year. This was the circle game I had for Nebraska this season. That this could be one of those games that Minnesota kind of gives you that punch, because a Friday night in Minnesota, not a fun place to travel. UNC travels to Cal. Take the Cal spread, man. 10.5 JKS. Just take it. I think UNC implosion is happening. You mentioned Washington and Michigan, and every point you made, completely correct. I mean, Washington is just the trio of Demond, Jonah Coleman, and Denzel Boston. It does not get much better than that this season. And then we go to the American. Tulane faces Army. Army, of course, won the American Championship last year against who? Tulane. So just keep that one in mind. OU
Boise
travels.
UNLV.
Boise UNLV. Yep, this is big for the UNLV boys. Big for Dan Mullen. Big for me. I had UNLV in my playoff. So let's go win that one. And then we get into, I was mentioning OU traveling to South Carolina. What does Mateer look like another week in? South Carolina, not a fun place to travel to. Good thing it's at 11:45. So I think that is only a plus for them. And I keep going down here. Texas Tech travels to Arizona State. I want to mention just that one because if Leavitt plays, I think Arizona State's got a chance. But if their starting quarterback obviously doesn't play, I don't think they have too much of a chance that I'm going to mark too much.
I think in absolute sicko fashion, we'd be remiss to not talk about Penn State versus Iowa.
No, you took it from me. All right.
No, I think we'd be remiss to just to not talk about that and see what the outlook of Penn State is for the rest of the season. This would be a good litmus test for what we can expect for Penn State. I think again, just a sicko game to watch, Penn State versus Iowa, but just fun to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke of the Big Ten doubleheader of the night. It's not Ohio State and Indiana. No, it's Penn State, Iowa, and Maryland, UCLA, baby. That is what is going to be on my television at night. You guys can. I know we broke it down. You could keep your Tennessee, Alabama. I want to see some more Nico versus Malik Washington over on this household. Just making sure. Which, dude, Malik Washington is so good. It's
so good.
It's so phenomenal. I love watching him play football. And then last but not least, if Florida State travels from Tallahassee to Stanford and they lose, and again, I sent the joke. Mike Norvell, happy belated birthday, 44 years old. The last time he won an ACC conference game, he was 42 years old. Just want that to be known. If they don't win this one, do they just leave him there? Because there's a real shot that Stanford now, with the UCLA rise, is the worst team in the Power Conference. I know they've beaten BC, but you just keep that in mind that this is a long travel for Florida State. Are the boys checked out? And all I can think of is 17.5 for Stanford. You're giving me that many points on a team that might be reeling. The coach might lose their team, might have lost their team already. Just I'm circling. I'm circling for certain. But yeah, that is all I've got from me. So
There you go. It is a ways out. It's like a month and a half out now at this point, and we'll loop back around to see if either or both or one still has a job. But I had saw a it was a funny tweet on
it's so mean.
their Instagram, and it was like FSU versus Florida. The winner of the game gets the right to fire their head coach. So Norvell, if FSU wins, FSU can fire Norvell, or if Florida wins, they can fire Billy. But the loser has to sign them to a 10-year extension. I just thought it was just hilarious.
I
Like,
just
idea.
I also want to make note of it that a Norvell buyout is more than Franklin. So we're at the point that it would have to get very, very ugly. And I think similar to a Northwestern loss for Penn State at home, losing four straight ACC games and completely losing their team and just Stanford being the nail in the coffin is the only reason I mention that
Yeah.
for Florida State. Just I don't like to mention firing the coach too often, just because you just never know with so much going on behind the scenes. But I think this is one that if it keeps going the route it's going, I think there's going to be a decision made.
Absolutely. And again, like, given all of the struggle that is happening down there, I guess up there in Boulder, whatever way you want to talk about it, are you telling me that if Dion walked in to Florida State and said, if you fire Norvell, I will be your head coach? Are you telling me the athletic director wouldn't just fire Norvell right there on the spot? Like, that truly is just like a dream come true. And I think that's obviously the only candidate for that job if Norvell gets fired is prime time. Um, but just as we've discussed, so many fun storylines to talk about for this week. And again, you guys can start come accustomed to these episodes coming out. They'll get, I think, as of right now, get dropped Wednesday morning. But as Matt had said at the top of the show, when the rankings actually start getting dropped, expect us to start going live on Tuesdays, so the day that we're recording right now. Um, and it's fun that we're kind of cut this out and having its own little segment, so we don't have to feel rushed on either of them. Because if we did an hour and a half segment of this on the actual main show, it would be awful. The world
I'd
would.
lose so much steam.
Yes. Exactly. So it's nice to be able to have a little bit more time both on this show, and then hopefully we can add some more fun stuff on the other show. And it's great that we're getting started now. Pleasure that we can do this together, Matt.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just again, last but not least, once the rankings are start to be official and we're getting Reese Davis telling us who the 11th ranked team in the country is, this channel will be live on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern. And we'll cover the rankings. We'll cover some recap. We'll do kind of what we did here. Maybe less games, but
Yes.
just speaking of the rankings, just want to get our feet wet on the Wednesday morning shows. So, but yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, as always, well, thank you to our sponsors, Regional Radio Sports, Spotify for podcasters, and Uppercuts Grooming. For those who are watching the day that this comes out, we look forward to talking to you guys later in the day. Make sure you guys tune into that live show that happens roughly around 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central every Wednesday. And as always, you guys take care, and we will see you guys tomorrow/today.